There are many weird and bizarre medical diseases and plagues that have affected us over our history. What about the plagues caused by mass hysteria or the strange diseases that are just simply unsolved? We're going to look at 4 cases that were a mix of both, and you are not going to believe some of them. First up is what was called the strange sleep or the big nod. It hit during the years 1917 till 1925, where 1 million people around the world came down with a disease that scientists still don't understand. The outbreak began in Europe in the summer of 1917 and quickly spread to the United States and other parts of the world. It affected both children and adults. It was called encephalitis lethargica. You went from happily eating, walking, or talking to falling into a deep sleep. You would think the rapture had come if people suddenly fell down all around you. People from Europe, North America, and other parts of the world caught the disease. The symptoms of the disease included sudden onset of sleepiness, muscle weakness, and tremors, as well as changes in mood and personality. The cause of the outbreak is not entirely understood, but it is believed to have been triggered by an infection such as a virus. Some theories suggest that the outbreak was caused by a strain of the influenza virus, which was circulating at the time. Others propose that it may have been caused by a form of streptococcal infection. This deep sleep that could last for days or months, and get this, around half of them died. Those that survived later showed high rates of Parkinson's-like symptoms and psychiatric illnesses. At the time, Viennese neurologist Konstantin von Economo found hypothalamic swelling in the brains of these patients. The disease was particularly devastating because there was no known treatment or cure for it, and many of the people who were affected by the outbreak never fully recovered. Those who did recover often experienced lingering symptoms such as tremors, muscle weakness, and difficulty with speech and movement. In the 1960s, neurologist Oliver Sacks revived the research, treating 60 sufferers at a Bronx hospital with the Parkinson's drug L-Dopa, though the effects didn't last. The research project became the subject of his book Awakenings and a later film with Robin Williams, From Zero Energy to a Dance Class That Would Even Tire Steven Tyler. It was called the Dancing Plague, also known as the Dance Epidemic of 1518. Another name was Thespitu's dance. It began as a strange phenomenon that occurred in the city of Strasbourg, in what is actually France. It was during the incredibly hot summer of 1518 that a new dance craze started. No, not TikTok moves, but a plague move. It is said to have begun when a woman named Frau Trophia stepped out of her property onto the warm street in Strasbourg and began to dance uncontrollably. Her moves would not stop, even under the baking sun. Within a week, 34 more people had joined her. Talk about a motivated team effort. But here is where it does really start to get strange. Within a month, the number had risen to over 400. The dancing continued for several weeks, and many of the dancers died from exhaustion or heart attacks. Which is understandable since it was during the height of summer. Why did Frau Trophia start dancing? The results are not clear, but historians believe that it may have been caused by a combination of factors. Starting with stress, psychological disorders, and mass hysteria, some theories think it may have been triggered by the extreme heat of the summer of 1518, which may have caused hallucinations and other symptoms. While there are some that suggest the dancing was a form of religious fervor, or others theorize it was a condition caused by the consumption of contaminated grain. Does this mean she was high? Dancing like they were at a rave. What did the town do about their street dancing groups? Well, this plague was met with a variety of responses from the authorities and the citizens of Strasbourg. The city's officials were initially at a loss as to how to deal with the situation, and many of them simply watched as the dancers continued their frenzied movements. However, as the outbreak continued and the number of dancers grew, the authorities became increasingly concerned about the impact that the dancing was having on the city. Not a calming situation trying to shop while you have a group of Michael Jacksons on the street all day. As the number of dancers continued to grow, the city officials decided to take action. They ordered that the dancers be rounded up and taken to a nearby chapel. Despite these efforts, the dancing plague continued to spread, and the number of dancers continued to grow. Eventually, the authorities decided to take more drastic measures, and ordered that the dancers be removed from the city and taken to a nearby village. Here, they were placed in the care of local healers and religious leaders, who attempted to cure them through a combination of prayer and exorcism. The dancing plague eventually came to an end, but not before it had claimed the lives of hundreds of people. The exact number of deaths is not known, but it is estimated that between 200 and 400 people died as a result of the outbreak. Because no autopsies were carried out and medical science of the day could hardly be described as advanced, only guesses can be made as to the causes. Perhaps it was some kind of skin infection or muscular inflammation leading to spasms. At the time, some people believed that the dancing was a curse brought about by Sphitus, who was, according to Christian legend, a Christian saint from Sicily. So they responded by praying and making pilgrimages to places dedicated to Vitus. The recovery of some victims further bolstered the perceived connection between illness and the saint. The dancing plague remains one of the most bizarre and mysterious outbreaks of all time, as the cause and reason for the outbreak still remains unclear. Right, from dancing all day to nuns in a trance. This next one is equally strange. After that last energetic disease, we are stepping into the mass hysteria zone. In Würzburg, Germany in 1749, there was an incident known as the Würzburg witch trials where a woman named Maria Renata Singer was accused of witchcraft and put on trial. The trial was notable for its severity and brutality, as well as the fact that it was one of the last witch trials to take place in Germany. It was here in Germany that a woman named Maria was inducted in the convent of Untersel in Bavaria in 1699. Maria then made a name for herself. With her great piety, she was appointed sub-prioress in 1740. It was during 1746. One of the nuns, Cecilia, became afflicted with convulsions and claimed to be possessed by demons and poltergeists. That would have been quite scary considering they were nuns, living in a nunnery after dedicating themselves to God. The attacks then spread through the convent, and soon you had several nuns suffering from hysteric attacks and trance-like states. It's got to the point now that one of them dies, after which Maria is pointed out as a Satanist and a magician. The church then conducted an exorcism at the convent, during which the nuns rolled on the ground and howled and snapped like mad cats. During a search in Maria's room, it was alleged that poisons, ointments, and strange robes were found. Maria is alleged to have confessed to a Benedictine confessor that she was a Satanist and a witch. That in 1687, at the age of 7, she had sworn herself to Satan. At 12, had become a prostitute and learned magic and to mix poisons. In 1694, Maria was baptized at a black mass. And in 1699, had entered the nunnery entirely to make strife amongst the brides of Christ. On top of that, she claimed to be a skilled chemist and preferred the poison aqua tofana developed by Giulia Tofana in Naples, who, side note, was a woman who sold poisons to other ladies so they could kill their partners. What a list they had against poor Maria. At the end of the day, she had been a devout nun and now accused of being a child Satanist and fully engaging in prostitution. I think the men involved in this trial got a little bit carried away with the charges. Maria, of course, said she was remorseful, but the church still judged her guilty of sorcery, heresy, witchcraft, apostasy, and Satanism, then turned her over to the secular authorities to be executed. During the trial, you can guarantee Maria was subjected to a variety of cruel and inhumane methods of interrogation, including torture, in order to extract a confession from her. Despite all she went through, Maria maintained her innocence throughout, claiming that she was the victim of a witch hunt. The trial ended with Maria being found guilty and sentenced to death by beheading, then burned at the stake. The execution was carried out on the same day as her conviction, in front of a large crowd of onlookers. I wonder how the other nuns felt after they seemed to have all been victim to some weird hysteria. They then had to watch one of their beloved leaders burn. Or was it they were sick of her and this was a fantastic opportunity? The Würzburg witch trials were part of the larger phenomenon of witchcraft trials that took place in Europe between the 15th and 18th centuries. It was a time where people were susceptible to superstitions, and the belief in witches and their powers was widespread. The Würzburg witch trials were one of the last of its kind in Germany, from Germany to Japan. This next one is going to make you think twice about watching TV. It was the great Pokemon panic of 1997. It was just after dinner on the 16th of December 1997, and everyone was settling in to watch the next episode of Pokemon. I know, scary, right? You had to actually wait for an episode, not simply binge watch. The series was up to episode 38 of the widely popular Pokemon anime. Hold your breath, it was about to be aired in Japan. Now this episode ended up having a very different reaction to others. It was at this moment the yellow Pikachu actually physically attacked the world. His electric attack is depicted with a quick series of flashing lights. This was watched by millions. The moment of the attack was streamed at 6:51 p.m. By 7:30 p.m. Over 600 children were entering the hospital with typical symptoms of epilepsy, seizures, altered levels of consciousness, headaches, breathlessness, nausea, vomiting, blurred vision, and general malaise. The intriguing case was quickly covered by the mass media, replaying the electric attack sequence, causing even more children to fall ill and exacerbating the case. It is estimated that by the end of it, over 12,000 children were involved in this situation. Among them, only a relatively small number of children had genuine photosensitive epilepsy seizures. The great majority were only victims of mass hysteria.